来到这就是埃及。今天这是金字塔篇，会带大家了解金字塔的起源啊，然后还有一些制造过程，还有里面有什么东西。OK， 那我们就开始吧。
Welcome to The Origin of the Pyramid. The origin of the word pyramid is controversial. Most believe that it originates with the Greek word pyramis, which referred to a bread of conical shape. Life and death in ancient Egypt were modeled on the cycle of the sun. The perfect shape of the smooth-faced pyramid became associated with the metaphor of the pharaoh transformed into one of the sun's rays in death. Pyramids represented the Benben, the primordial mound of the Heliopolitan creation myth. These stories permeated every aspect of Egyptian life to a greater or lesser extent. During the pre-dynastic period, the development of funerary practices was different depending on whether one was located in Lower Egypt or Upper Egypt. Well before the pyramid, there was the burial pits. It is on the site of Merimde Beni Salame in Lower Egypt that we find the oldest funerary site, dating back to 5000 BCE. Study of the tombs revealed that the bodies of the deceased were deposited in a shallow grave in a fetal position. Though a few objects were recovered from these graves, they offered no insight as to the social class of those interred within.
这边在说
In Upper Egypt, pre-dynastic practices are easier to study, but reveal more complex funerary rites. They are divided into two cultural phases, Badarian and Nagada. The Badarian phase ranged from 4400 BCE to 3800 BCE. Small necropolises were discovered on the outskirts of villages, revealing the emergence of a funerary cult. The bodies of the deceased were lowered into an oval grave and covered with goat or gazelle skins. Items needed in everyday life were added alongside the body.
这就是在前期没有金字塔，但是他们还是有所谓的墓种这样，那就是人死掉了，然后他们就会把它放在椭圆形的坟墓里面，然后用一些动物的皮去覆盖它，然后在身边再放一些他们日常会用到的物品，这样来算是做下葬的动作。
During the three Nagada periods ranging from 4000 BCE to 3510 BCE, funerary practices evolved in complexity. The shape of tombs changed from oval to rectangular, mimicking the homes of the living. The size of the burials increased and funerary items became more stylized and numerous. Tombs gained complexity with masonry, wooden veneers, or raw bricks added to strengthen the structures.
到后期、中后
In
期、
time, socially
前中
stratified
期，
necropolises emerged.
他们
For example,
作为下
higher
葬
necropolis,
的
the elite and
规
commoners
模
had
开始
separate
变得比较大，
necropolises.
从原本椭圆形变成矩形，然后占地也变大，那装备的东西，装饰用的东西也变得比较多，也变得比较复杂，然后会开始，从以往的可能挖个洞就丢下去，现在变成就是可能会搭个，用木头或者是砖块来强化你的结构，就像我们可能以前直接丢下去，然后土就埋了，然后现在就是 有棺材啊，把你放在里面啊，让你不会直接被土盖着这样。
The term mastaba, meaning massive bench in dialectal Arabic, refers to a form of funerary architecture that was present in Egypt from the Archaic period to the Middle Kingdom. An evolution of the burial pit, mastabas were generally composed of two parts. A structure was built above the ground in the form of a massive rectangle with stepped walls.
它这就是一个木种的结构啦，就是你进来之后，它就直直冲到里面，然后有一个墓室，就是用来放人的。然后这种墓室还算是小型的坟墓这样，那附近可能就是会有他们一族的，就是有亲戚关系的，就可能会在附近一群一群这样。
The arrangement of the substructure of the mastaba evolved during the course of the Old Kingdom. From the 5th dynasty onwards, mastabas often featured multi-roomed substructures, with sometimes up to 30 rooms.
随着单调的房间，可能一进去就是一间墓室，到后面装饰啊，然后扩地，占地越来越大之后，就会开始做隔间的动作，然后装饰的物品啊也有区别，然后品质也提高了，这样。
The 6th dynasty would see art used to its utmost.
这就是在他们墓室里面的一些装饰，一些图腾啊、图案啊、他们的文字啊，做成一幅装饰品。
The best example of this type of mastaba is the tomb of Meroruka in Saqqara.
然后这就是很有名的左塞尔阶级金字塔，它跟一般金字塔不一样啊，它是一阶一阶的。
Welcome to the Step Pyramid Complex of Djoser. The Step Pyramid is at the center of an enclosed complex, comprised of temples, models of palaces, and artificial constructions, all built for the afterlife of Pharaoh Djoser. The funeral complex itself covers 15 hectares and is located on the highest point of the Saqqara Plateau. It's clear from the elaborate detail and scale of the complex that this was a technological marvel of its time. The only fragment of information regarding the design plans of the complex was discovered on a section of stone containing an architectural sketch of a vault. The Step Pyramid is the first monument built of stone. Standing at 60 meters high, it was the tallest of its time. Built 4,700 years ago, it was originally intended as a mastaba, which was a flat-roofed rectangular tomb. Its famous architect, Imhotep, may have felt this was too humble for the great pharaoh Djoser and began to add the steps. The step pyramid complex is enclosed within a 1,600-meter-long wall that is 10 meters high. This large wall was made out of white limestone and oriented along the north-south axis.
部分就属于它城墙的区域啦，就是金字塔外围的城墙，把它围起来。
While there are 14 doors, only its eastern door was intended to accommodate the living. The remaining false doors were built as portals for the king's ka to pass through. Along with false doorways, the walls were designed with bastions and steeples resembling a defensive wall. The positioning of these design elements suggest that they were related to the Hebset festival.
这边有门的造型，它有个门的造型，那总共14道。然后他说呢，只有东门是用来让我们活人走的，那其他的门都是用来国王的卡通过。那国王的卡，他们的卡在这边就称为他们的灵魂，就是他们的灵魂，让国王的灵魂通过这样。
The only real entrance into the complex is at the end of a long, narrow passageway. This enclosure has a stone canopy carved to resemble wooden logs. At the end of the passage is a large opening. Meant to resemble a doorway, it has carved doors and hinges that are permanently open and immovable.
这边就是他人走的入口，那入口的一些装饰品的部分，那还有它的一些意图，它的意义，这些雕塑的意义。
The corridor is lined with 20 pairs of columns up to 6 meters high, built by stacking stone drums. The completed facade was made to resemble reed stock bundles. Traces of red paint were found on the columns, along with black paint on the support walls. This would have had the effect of blending the walls into the shadows to give the red columns the illusion of standing on their own. Chambers are located on either side of the columns and are thought to be chapels representing the provinces of Upper and Lower Egypt. According to some Egyptologists, the arrangement of the rooms may be symbolic of jurisdiction and judgment. Guarded by a line of carved snakes, this tomb is located at the southern end of the courtyard. The burial chamber is beneath it, down a 30-meter deep shaft. The low-ceilinged chamber resembles a mastaba and is relatively intact compared to the later burial chamber. The tomb is made of pink granite, though there is evidence it was once polished limestone. Too small for a body, it is possible that the tomb was intended for the king's ka, or to hold the canopic jars containing the king's organs. Later traditions in burials would have the canopic jars in the same chamber as the body. A polished limestone staircase leads west from the tomb to underground apartments. Some of these rooms were intended to accommodate the king and his family in the afterlife. Many large jars of pottery were found, including some that still had deposits of beer, milk, and oil inside them. The false doorways are decorated with reliefs of the king taking part in rituals. In these reliefs, he is seen carrying agricultural tools, running, and performing a ritual for the reanimation of the deceased. The architect Imhotep chose stone as a building material in order for the complex to last. Following the completion of the initial mastaba, Imhotep devised a burial of more ambitious dimensions. He set about stacking mastabas on top of each other. Evidence shows that the pyramid was enlarged twice by additional cuts into the steps, eventually reaching 62 meters in height and 121 meters by 109 meters at its base.
这边说的就是阶级金字塔，它是有一层一层被盖上去的，也就是底部一层完之后，然后要再新增一层，他们就在另外再盖上去，这样一层一层叠上去，而不是一次性完成。
A staircase allowing the pharaoh to enter the divine world was represented by a tiered pyramid, oblong in shape, completely enveloping the original mastaba. The pyramid itself is a solid structure. All of the chambers and tunnels are beneath the structure. Pharaoh Djoser the Sacred was the founder of the Third Dynasty. He ruled for 19 years.
During his reign, he was known as Horus Negerikat, divine of the body. He was given the name Djoser several centuries after his death, as a sign of respect, and he is regarded as one of the greatest pharaohs of Egypt. An apocrypha was drafted in his name during the Ptolemaic period, 2,500 years after his death.
Djoser was associated with the sky god Horus in his human form. A plinth near the step pyramid is inscribed with his name and associated with Horus. He was the first to reside in Memphis, making it the central hub of government for the region. Djoser was known to have built many temples and monuments before the complex at Saqqara. The funerary complex was the first of its kind, and would mark Djoser's greatest architectural achievement. The funerary complex was built to resemble Djoser's palace, with the stone carved to imitate mud brick, trees, and reeds. Creating these details and softer textures in hard stone would have been a time-consuming, labor-intensive task. Much of the complex is designed to accommodate the Hebsed festival, allowing the king the ability to affirm his rule even in the afterlife.
这边我们可以知道，其实金字塔不只是为他死后来表示他的身份与地位，另外还有，在他死后的世界有办法让他继续巩固他 统治的地位的这一层意义存在。
In the corner is a temple referred to as T. This temple is among the most mysterious structures in the complex. Its outer facade is plain, while inside it is decorated with intricate jed pillars and carvings. It's possible that this place was intended to be where the Ka of the king materialized, symbolically visiting the platform of the Hebsed courtyard from the afterlife. The Hebsed festival enabled the pharaoh to maintain universal order and renew godly powers. Through a series of trials and religious rites, such as dance, offerings, and visiting the sanctuaries of various deities, the ruler's vital force and divine nature was confirmed. The celebration was meant to represent the ruler's jubilee and would take place every 30 years, though the deadline was not always followed. The earliest known ritual dates from the first dynasty.
就是在说他们固定会有一段时间会有一个节日这样，叫赫普赛德节这样，它能够让当权者维持整个世界的秩序，还有算是更新，应该说是向大家强调他的权力、他的神力这样。
Within the complex of Djoser, southeast of the pyramid, is a dedicated space for this essential ritual to be performed by the king even in the afterlife. The Hebsed courtyard is lined with false chapels and equipped with a platform featuring 2 staircases meant to represent Upper and Lower Egypt. Located in the courtyard, the 2 pavilions are believed to represent the palaces of Upper and Lower Egypt. Rectangular in shape, the 2 replica structures face one another. Their facade is similar to the chapels of the Hebsed ceremony, with column crowns carved to look like falling leaves. Because Queen Hetep-Hernepti and Princess Inetkas's names were discovered on a stela near the pavilions, it is thought that these funerary chapels were intended for them. The funerary temple is on the north side of the complex, facing the stars where the deceased ruler was believed to travel after death. Within this temple was the pharaoh's serdab, or cellar. It is a small, enclosed space with one wall sloped to match the first step of the pyramid. The north wall has 2 observation holes. A statue of Djoser is seated on the throne, wearing a mantle and a tripartite wig with a crown known as a Nemes. Representing the king's Ka, this statue looks through the observation holes into the courtyard, enabling the king to observe the ceremonies and receive offerings in the afterlife.
接下来就来到我们要看看左塞尔金字塔内部的构造啦。
Welcome to Inside Djoser's Step Pyramid. The architect of the Step Pyramid, Imhotep, was a man of great importance to Pharaoh Djoser and ancient Egyptians in general.
他说，这个金字塔的建筑师是一个叫因河岸的人，他对法老左塞尔来说是一个非常重要的人，对整体的古埃及人也是一样。
While he is credited for writing medical texts, it is for his role of architect.
但他是个木匠，也是雕刻家、支持者，也是个先知领袖。
From the design of the pyramid to the elements within the complex itself, Imhotep set out to create something that would immortalize his king. An architectural achievement, the step pyramid was made from stone blocks instead of mud brick. It was the first time Egyptians built a monument of that height. Imhotep explicitly intended for the stone to reflect natural materials. The funerary complex of Djoser remained famous throughout the centuries and millennia, and its great architect, Imhotep, was deified by ancient Egyptians during the late period.
金字塔里面有很多很像密室的地方啊，然后就放满许多杂物、装饰品或贡品。
In addition to the central subterranean palace built for Djoser, 11 wells were dug. Each went to a depth of 33 meters and connected with a horizontal gallery extending for about 20 meters. The first 5 galleries were intended for members of the royal family. Two passages lead underground and branch off in 3 directions to various magazine galleries. This vast underground space accommodated sections for storage and ceremonial offerings. One of the tunnels, starting on the east side of the pyramid, contained 40,000 stone vessels, many of them belonging to the king's ancestors.
这就是金字塔内部大概的结构啦。那我们刚刚就从这边走进来，然后这边晃了一下，然后再往下继续走，这样。我们可以进来看看里面有什么。里面呢，基本上也是一些杂物，然后一些贡品之类的东西。听起来没什么特别。对，就是一些杂物贡品，还有一些卷轴。
The burial chamber of Djoser is located at the bottom of a 28-meter-deep central shaft. According to Egyptologist Jean-Philippe Lauer,
The chamber was originally made from polished blocks of limestone, while its ceiling was decorated in 5-pointed stars. At some point, however, the limestone blocks were replaced entirely by pink granite blocks, leaving behind only fragments of limestone blocks decorated with stars. At the foot of the chamber are many tunnels going in all directions. This maze of tunnels, galleries, and chambers stretches over 5 kilometers. There are a number of dead ends and false doors. They may have been intended for the afterlife, rather than to fool thieves.
然后他说金字塔里面有很多很复杂的通道啦、地道啊、长廊啊、房间啊。那他说这些有死路也有假门，就是你进去了也什么都没有，或者是摆放一堆贡品这样。那他们认为说这个是为死后世界而设计的，而不是为了防贼、盗墓者。
Unlike the Great Pyramid of Giza, or Menkaure, the Pyramid of Djoser does not have any extra openings dug out by thieves. There was no need for them. Because of the easy access into the tunnels and along the corridors, thieves had little trouble clearing out the temples once inside. It is unknown when the mummy of Djoser was stolen. All that remained was a left foot, found by French Egyptologist Jean-Philippe Lauer in 1934. This architect, who devoted his whole life to meticulously exploring the complex, believed it belonged to Djoser. The Pharaoh's apartments, also known as the Blue Chambers, are decorated with blue-green tiles meant to imitate the reed matting that covered the walls and windows of his palace. The stone is carefully curved and painted to look like the rolled mats of open doorways and curtains.
你说法老的房间啊，会就称作蓝室，然后它里面会墙壁上会用这种蓝绿色的砖块来做装饰，模仿他生前在宫殿中就他的住所啊、墙壁，还有窗户的一些样貌这样。
There are 2 long rooms running side by side along a north-south axis. The south room has false doors separated by stone panels, while the north room is a corridor which allows access to side chambers. Nearby chambers originally housed the pharaoh's treasures.
你进来之后就进来法老的房间之后，你就会看到有2个通道啦。那一边就是通往放法老他的一些宝物的地方，这样。
The door frames are made of fine limestone and carved with the king's name. As in the south tomb, reliefs are carved into the doorways. These reliefs show the king performing rituals and visiting divine sanctuaries for all eternity. Their interiors are fictive additions made by the team to add to the wonders of the tomb. It is clear from the elaborate detail and scale of the complex that this funerary monument was a technological marvel of its time.
就是左塞尔金字塔内部的一些构造啊，然后还有它一些结构。有很多陪葬品啊，看起来很高贵。OK， 那我们就想办法出去吧。
Welcome to Sneferu's first pyramid. With the long reign of Sneferu, the first king of the 4th dynasty, the most brilliant and creative period began for the construction of funerary monuments in Egypt. Funerary monument design moved from the step pyramid to the smooth-faced pyramid, testament to the evolution of the practices of construction. The first attempt at this design was the Pyramid of Meidum.
OK， 那我们可以看到，这是斯尼夫鲁的第一座金字塔。它金字塔虽然说跟之前的一样，就是还是以阶梯方式去建造，但是它的表面有很明显经过加工美化，比较不会看起来破破烂烂的。
While Sneferu's monument started as a 7-stepped pyramid, it was later altered into an 8-stepped structure. The final phase of construction saw the steps filled out and an outer casing applied to achieve a smooth surface. The smooth dressing of the walls did not provide sufficient bonding, however, and the outer casing did not rest on sound foundations. As a result, the bases of the 4 outer buttress walls gave way, causing the walls to slide down and collapse. While the Meidum Pyramid was abandoned due to design flaws, it showcased other innovations that would impact all future pyramid designs. As well as the smooth sides, it was the first time a ceremonial pavement was built, leading from the valley to the temple of the pyramid. Another innovation was that of the funerary chamber, which was no longer at the bottom of a well, but rather above ground level. This change signaled the beginning of the 3-bedroom system.
这座金字塔虽然说是第一座，但是它并没有正式被启用啊，因为刚刚说的它外表缺陷太大了，所以没有正式被启用。然后到了就顺便带你们看一下，这边其实在古埃及来说是他们的日晷，中间这一根呢就是指针啊，那它以影子的方式来看，我们到上面看比较清楚。当然以前人是不会这样爬上来，但我们为了方便看，所以就是还是爬上来看这样。那以这边来去看的话，现在的时间应该差不多就是差不多早上快接近中午，差不多9点多的时候了，快9点的时候了。那它的时间其实跟我们日晷的概念是差不多的。我们也可以稍微看一下这一座陵墓它的内部，不过要找一下入口啊。好，它好像是没有入口了，看起来如此。OK， 接下来就是戴赫说有的曲折金字塔啦，它外表就如同我们看到的，它不是一个正三角形啊，它有到差不多一定高度有更加倾斜的趋势。
Welcome to the bent pyramid of Dash. After the construction of the Meidum pyramid failed, Sneferu transferred his residence and the official necropolis to Dashur. There he began construction on his second attempt at a
那他
funerary
是在
monument.
美杜姆金字塔失败之后，试着再开始建造的。它是埃及里唯一一座曲折金字塔。
Though the pyramid also proved unstable and was abandoned, it marked a technical and architectural breakthrough. Heralding an important design transition, the bent pyramid displays a shift from the step pyramid to a functional smooth-sided
这
pyramid.
边它就是从阶梯金字塔到我们倾斜的平面金字塔，开始在往倾斜的平面金字塔做改变、做变化，这样。
The bent pyramid was unique in having two separate entrances, one on the northern face and another on the western face. The chamber of this pyramid was too small for a human burial. It was probably meant for the burial of a statue designated to house the Ka, the vital spirit of the deceased king.
他说它入口有2个哦，一个在北面，一个在西面。那 这座金字塔因为它房间太小了，没办法将人类埋在里面，所以我们猜测说它可能是用来埋葬、储存国王的灵魂的雕像这样。
With the bent pyramid, architects successfully experimented with a completely new idea: to build the pyramid with a core of huge stones settled on a progressive horizontal design. This way, each construction phase could be completed in a single stage, allowing the architect complete control over every design element. Unfortunately, these precautions did not prevent sagging or cracks in the interior
所以
rooms
金
of
字
the
塔虽
pyramid.
然它有
Several abandoned the monument
创
and
新
began
的
the construction of
外
yet another pyramid.
建造结构，还有它的外表有做创新的设计以外，因为它内部设计没有说很好，所以因为塌陷破裂，所以就被放弃。所以这座金字塔里面其实也是没有放，就是没有埋葬任何人的。我可以稍微进去看一下金字塔里面。它里面结构还算是完整，但是可以看得出有一些塌陷的部分。里面有个石碑，它内部的结构真的是空间非常的小了，实在比起刚刚我们看的金字塔来说，很小间，很小的一间。这是我们另一座戴赫苏尔的红色金字塔，它就盖在曲折金字塔旁边。它曲折金字塔被放弃之后，就转了建造它这样。
Welcome to the Red Pyramid of Dashur. The Red Pyramid was built 2 kilometers to the north of the Bent Pyramid. It was so named
那它建造的时候是有用到微红的石灰岩，所以它颜色偏红，就叫红色金字塔这样。
While the ground level of the Red Pyramid is lower than that of the Bent Pyramid, its height is virtually the same. The task of making the pyramid a geometrical, true flat-face pyramid brought about yet another new design concept: the use of casing blocks.
你们已经可以看到入口了，等一下我们来进去看一下。
The descending corridor of the pyramid, which opens to the north, arrives at ground level, where 2 almost identical spectacular chambers with high ceilings are aligned north to south and connected by a short horizontal passage. In the south wall of the second chamber, accessed by a staircase, Another corridor leads to the final chamber, which is built within the masonry of the pyramid itself and aligned east to west. The annexes of the Red Pyramid consist of a small funerary temple located to the east. A causeway presumably ran due east from the temple, but it has yet to be excavated. The Red Pyramid was structurally sound, and once finished, marked a remarkable design milestone.
看到这红色金字塔非常的外观非常的漂亮，非常的完整，还是建造起来后的，算是第一座比较接近现代的正三角形的一个金字塔。
Welcome to Pyramids of the Middle Kingdom. During the Middle Kingdom era, the powerful rulers of the 12th dynasty resumed the tradition of elaborate pyramidal tombs. For example, Amenemhat I built a funerary complex in Lisht, and Senusret II selected the Elahun site in the Fayum. Amenemhat II and Sesostris III, however, cast their favor towards Dashur. Amenemhat III built a pyramid there as well before moving to Hawara in the Fayum. The plundering of tombs in troubled times prompted the architects of the Middle Kingdom to devise increasingly complicated means of security during construction. As such, while the architectural plans of the Hawara pyramid were
盗
similar to the
墓
one in
这一个
Dashur,
行为
the
是
means
在
used to protect it
中
from
王
looters
国
were much
时
more
期
elaborate.
才开始比较
Beyond the
盛
use
行
of blind passages and
建筑
concealed
师在
trapdoors,
设计
the
金字塔的
architects
时候
relied on a
开
system of
始
stone slabs,
针对
which were slid into
防
place
止
at
盗
the end
墓
of
啊、安全
construction.
性做一些
These massive stone
设
slabs
计
were meant to
防护手
permanently
段。
block the passageways leading to the funerary chambers. The kings of the 13th dynasty began building their pyramids at Masguna, south of Dashur, then moved on to Fayum and Abydos. The kings of the 17th dynasty, however, satisfied themselves with crowning their cave tombs with small pyramids of raw brick. The kings of the 18th dynasty gave up the shape of the pyramid as a royal tomb entirely. They chose a mountain with a pyramidal shape in the Valley of Kings and dug their graves there.
It was not until the Nubian pharaohs of the 25th dynasty that kings were once again buried under pyramidal tombs. In fact, today, the area of ancient Nubia, modern Sudan, contains a record number of 220 known pyramids to Egypt's 138. Despite their slow decline in use and quality, pyramids continued to fascinate all and sundry up to the Roman era. They remain to this day a symbol of the religious dedication of the pharaohs and the grandeur of ancient Egypt.
就是中王国的金字塔群啊，他们是比较不知名的，然后还有就是他们部分的国王，他们选择在山上一些比较像金字塔的，找个比较像金字塔的山，然后就直接把他的坟墓盖在上面这样。然后我刚刚看到有一个雕像，我觉得可以带你们来看看它。OK， 这只呢是埃及其中一位神，其中一个神祇。它是一个鳄鱼的形状，它是鳄鱼的形状，那它叫做索贝克，埃及他们都称呼它索贝克，是一个恶神，鳄鱼的恶神。那接下来这边就是埃及最著名的金字塔群啊，人面狮身像当然也在这里。
Welcome to an overview of the Giza necropolis. The Giza Plateau is located on the west bank of the Nile and was considered by ancient Egyptians as the domain of the dead. The pyramidal complexes found there were built over the span of 3 generations, during the reign of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaura.
然后这边我们可以看到，这3座金字塔很著名啊，从中最大座的就是古夫金字塔，然后再下来是卡夫拉，再下来是孟卡拉金字塔，他们的金字塔就是坐落在这里这样。
The Giza area, now famous for its 3 pyramids, is part of a wider grouping of funerary complexes. Rulers from this period generally elected to be buried in the area. The focal point of the entire region was the city of Memphis, chosen as the capital of Egypt at the beginning of the Old Kingdom. The placement of the Giza monuments, and particularly that of the pyramids, followed a practical yet strict alignment. First, they focused on cardinal points, and then they accounted for the natural geology of the plateau.
OK， 接下来这就是我们著名的人面狮身像。
Welcome to The Riddle. A sphinx was originally meant to be a personification of the king. The human head, wearing pharaonic regalia, was fused with the body of a lion, thus sharing the qualities the powerful animal possessed, namely its power, the swiftness of its attack, and its majestic authority. By these very virtues, it was also considered a symbol of protection. Unsurprisingly, statues of sphinxes could be found along the Dromas, protectors of the path taken by the gods to reach the temples.
那这边说人面狮身像除了是作为国王的化身啊，也是摆放在一些大神殿两旁的走道啊，作为守护者的身份。
Over the centuries, enthusiasts and historians alike have wondered, who built the Sphinx? For what purpose? And who does it represent? These questions remain unanswered. Several theories do exist, however, some more credible than others. One theory supposes that Getafre chose to pay homage to his father Khufu
没有人知道人面狮身像到底是谁盖的，
The stone temple on the eastern
我也
face of the
不代
Sphinx
表他
would
是
have
谁，
been
也
added
不知道
later
他是
on
谁
by
啦
his。brother and successor,
有一个说法
Khafre,
认为他是为了
in order
彰
to
显
strengthen the divine worship
虎
of their
夫
father.
的，
It would be
就
the first
是
Egyptian temple oriented
孩
to the
子
sun.
对他的敬意，才建造这座人面狮身像。
Another theory suggests that the Sphinx was built by Khafre and was meant to represent him. The arguments to support this hypothesis are based on the fact that the limestone beds used for the main work of the Temple of the Sphinx are geographically and architecturally similar to the Valley Temple of Khafre. Some believe that Khufu himself built the Sphinx, which was later finished under his successors, Getafre and Khafre. These arguments
然后
are
另一个
based
说
on
法呢，就是
stylistics
由
of the engraving,
古夫他自己建造
typology
的
of
啦，
the means, and the
他自己
absence
建
of
造，
a
然
year
后
at the time
之
of
后再由
construction.
他的后代来做完成，这样。
While ancient Egypt as a whole leaves a rather monochrome vision of its monuments and statuary, it is vital to understand that in ancient times, absolutely everything was painted. The sun, eating away at the pigments of the colors, the sand, the climate, and the implacable impact of time, unfortunately destroyed the glorious colors of the Sphinx of Giza.
然后他说人面狮身像曾经是有颜色的，不是像我们现在看到的，就是土黄色、沙子的颜色这样。
Today, however,
其实是
the
有
only
颜色
color
的
that。remains are traces of red close to the ears of the Sphinx, as well as hints of blue and yellow on the knees, traditional colors for that type of headdress. The pigments for the color red were man-made, obtained by mixing different products such as clay, quartz sand, and very finely crushed hematite. Red had a strong symbolism in ancient Egypt. It was both the color of life and the color of death. It could represent the sands of the desert or the brilliance of the sun. Red was also associated with the god Seth, vengeful and destructive. The Egyptian word for red, deshur, is also the word which was used to signify the desert or the royal crown of Lower Egypt. In art, red was also the color used to paint the bodies of men, while yellow was used for women. It is possible that there were also color restoration efforts during the Saite period about 600 years before Cleopatra's rule, as indicated by notes on the inventory stele, discovered in 1858 by Auguste Mariette. It is because of this that the team made the decision to display it with its full range of colors, even though the Sphinx's colors would have likely faded by Cleopatra's time. Dating from the 4th dynasty, approximately 2600 to 2500 BCE, the Great Sphinx of Giza is the oldest and largest sphinx that we know of. Carved from a natural limestone outcrop, the Sphinx measures 19.8 meters in height, 73.2 meters in length, and 14 meters in width.
说位在吉萨的这个人面狮身像呢，是我们知道最大的一个人面狮身像了。它高度有到19.8公尺，那长度是73.2公尺，宽度是14公尺。
In order to bring polish to the imposing monument, several blocks of limestone were added after the initial construction phase. Since then, there have been numerous attempts at preservation. The polish present in the game integrates some aspects of modern restoration attempts. The team made this choice to present a more iconic version of the Sphinx of Giza to the player. Today, the Sphinx is called the Terrifying One. This appellation is translated from its Arabic name, Abu al-Hal, which in turn was derived from Baluba in Coptic. The Sphinx as a whole was carved in situ from a natural stone promontory. Its head was built in a limestone peak of the Yucatan
说
Plate,
人面狮身像，除了它头呢，它身体其实是一个天然隆起的岩石
The
雕刻
degradation
出来
of the
的。
Sphinx is due in particular to wind erosion and the different quality of limestone
所以
used
说它
in
也
its
不是
construction.
整
The level
只
of
都是
sodium contained
像
in
金字塔那
groundwater
样
which
把
abuts
一
the
个一
stone
块石
is
头
also
叠
a
起来，
contributing factor.
其实是半天然，半人工。
The natural bedrock is seen through the oblique natural strata of the Sphinx's body that are similar to the surrounding limestone. Since antiquity, people have always believed there was a hidden tomb deep within the Sphinx. It is thought that attempts to plunder the Sphinx began as far back as the First Intermediate period. Since then, numerous attempts to pierce the Sphinx's secrets have been carried out, leaving indelible scars upon the monument.
他是说，以前人认为啊，人面狮身像其实跟金字塔一样，就是它底部可能有个隐藏的古墓，这样就想要进去寻宝。那这样陆陆续续下来，多少也对他身上造成一些没办法弥补的伤痕。
12 meters long and cut during pharaonic times, another entrance in the back of the Sphinx aroused curiosity. Although Thutmose IV attempted to seal it off, it was possibly reopened by treasure hunters. It was rediscovered by Howard Vyse and mapped more recently by Mark Lehner. This entrance at the back of the Sphinx leads to different
然后这个人面狮身像被发现背后这边其实有一个入口那曾经有人这样把它封闭起来，但是还是被挖开这样，但这不代表它是个墓穴。
While there have been no major discoveries pertaining to the Sphinx of Giza in recent years, theories and hypotheses continue to emerge. Without validation provided by
对于人面
archaeological
狮身像，
sources,
其实还有
however,
很
they remain
多的
unsubstantiated.
疑问有很多的论点。那因为缺乏证据，还有因为它时间的关系，所以很多东西都没办法被证实。
The first of the main theories as to the Sphinx of Giza's meaning posits that the Sphinx was originally a massive representation of the god Anubis. Its principal arguments are that the head of the Sphinx is disproportionate compared to the size of its body. The second theory believes that the representation of two sphinxes on the stela of Thutmose IV would indicate that another stone sphinx had existed on the site itself, possibly even in paired symmetry on the other side of the Nile. However, neither of these theories can be verified in any way.
他说，人面狮身像其实很可能是原本是要盖一个很大的阿努比斯神但是最后却改成狮子头。
Several scientific projects using new technologies have been put in place in the past decades. The most important was led by Mark Lehner and his team, who specialize in the study and survey of the Giza Plateau, including the Sphinx site. The mapping made it possible to see the materials used to construct the Sphinx, analyze the different layers of erosion, and figure out the most fragile areas to protect. After a few attempts at giving the Sphinx artistic proportions, the team instead decided to use photogrammetry mapping to faithfully reproduce the proportions of the Sphinx. What the Sphinx of Giza represented during its construction and how the Sphinx was perceived by the Egyptians of the New Kingdom are two very different matters. Originally a representation of the king imbued with the power of the lion, the Sphinx was eventually viewed as a direct representation of the most divine. It is theorized that kings of the New Kingdom believed that the Sphinx of Giza was the one who recognized and legitimized the ruler of Egypt. Thus, despite the fact the Sphinx of Giza was partially buried under the sand during his reign, Amenhotep II knew that the monument was of great importance. Amenhotep II built a second temple dedicated for the Sphinx as Horemakhet to pay homage to Khufu and Khafre, his predecessors. It became a common habit for this dynasty to spend time with their royal courts at the Sphinx. Its sanctuary became known as Setepet, the Chosen. Egyptologist Mark Lehner believed that Amenhotep II built a statue of himself anchored between the paws of the Sphinx, likely to legitimize his reign, alongside a stela found by Salim Hassan. Many other pharaohs of this dynasty, such as Tutankhamun and Ramses II, also left marks of their passage in a similar fashion, sometimes even stripping the stones of nearby temples and pyramids to do so. Amenhotep II's son and successor, Thutmose IV, was a frequent offender. While sleeping between the Sphinx's paws, the future Thutmose IV saw in a dream the god Horamakhet proclaiming his coming accession on the throne of the two lands. This was, of course, on the condition that he remove all of the sand covering the Sphinx, which stood guard as the personification of the god, and should thus never be engulfed by the sands of the desert. The 15-ton dream stela built by Thutmose IV to commemorate his dream was discovered by an Italian Egyptologist, Giovanni Battista Caviglia, in 1818, when he undertook the task of freeing the Sphinx from the sand, which had yet again covered it. Caviglia was looking for an entrance into the structure of the Sphinx, but instead he discovered an open-air chapel and stelas between the paws. Ashes from a ceremony were still present. Protected by sand, they quite possibly were from the last ceremonies in Roman times. That same year, Caviglia discovered fragments of the Sphinx's beard that had probably been added during the New Kingdom. If many of these pieces are held by museums in Cairo, a fragment is displayed at the British Museum, along with a piece of the uraeus that was on the Sphinx's headdress. It is believed this fragment of beard was possibly kept in place thanks to the statue of Amenhotep II, which was supposed to be located under the head of the Sphinx. A popular cultural legend purports that the nose of the Sphinx of Giza was lost during the time of Napoleon Bonaparte to the cannon fire of French soldiers in training. However, engravings from before the time of that campaign already depicted the Sphinx without a nose, indicating that it had been removed before the French campaign. The most plausible hypothesis is based on the research of the German historian Ulrich Harman. During the 1980s, Harman compiled medieval sources written by Arab authors. In doing so, he discovered that the Sphinx was once perceived as a favorable omen, a deity supporting sediment-nurturing floods and crops. Around 1378, a Sufi by the name of Muhammad Sa'im al-Dar could not stand this vision of the monument, and in an iconoclastic act, broke the nose of the Sphinx. According to the texts, he was then hanged and burned between the legs of the Sphinx for his crime.
OK， 接下来就是看看这些金字塔啦。
Welcome to Khufu's funerary complex. The Valley Temple was the first architectural component encountered when one entered the funerary complex. It was considered the official entrance of the tomb and mixed the structural components of both a temple and a portico. Khufu's Valley Temple shows evidence of a basalt pavement, letting us know where the portico portion of the structure was located. Such a partition is believed to symbolize both the subterranean and solar aspects of the afterlife.
Khufu's causeway ran from the floodplain up to the plateau, linking together the Valley Temple and the Mortuary Temple. A traditional causeway presented itself as a paved path, enclosed by walls and often roofed. Fragments discovered by archaeologists indicate that the walls in Khufu's causeway, one of the longest known to us, were decorated with carvings and possibly paint. Depictions show a great variety of themes: stars on the ceiling, accompanied by scenes of battles on the walls. Other engravings depicted the creation of the complex by illustrating craftsmen at work. The most impressive private cemeteries of Giza are located east and west of Khufu's pyramid. The Eastern Cemetery was reserved for members of the royal family, while the Western Cemetery was mostly set aside for various court dignitaries. In both areas, private tombs, also known as mastabas, were aligned and laid out methodically in streets and avenues. This arrangement was probably an attempt at recreating
在
the
吉
king's
萨这边有
court
个
for
很
the
特别的
afterlife.
地方哦，就是它旁边有所谓小型的陵墓，在最一开始我们看到小型陵墓是一些比较重要人物做他们的坟墓这样，那在这边变成就是王室的成员使用这样，那他们有摆放的很像街道巷道这样，可能是想要在死后世界重现王国的风貌。
To the east of Khufu's pyramid reside three smaller constructions, the three Queen's Pyramids.
然后这三座大金字塔，它旁边有三座小的金字塔，那这个是三座王后的金字
If
塔
it。seems quite certain that these monuments were intended for Queen's burials, the identity of the original occupants is hard to assess. The northernmost pyramid was most likely meant for Queen Hetepheres, who is believed to have been Khufu's mother. However, in 1925, her actual tomb was discovered nearby by accident. It was hidden at the bottom of a deep masonry pit in an underground chamber. Within the concealed chamber, Egyptologists discovered the most complete royal funerary equipment, dating from the Old Kingdom, though her body was missing. Within the vicinity of Khufu's pyramid, Egyptologists have uncovered 7 boat pits. The exact function of such boat-shaped pits remains unconfirmed, though one can easily conjecture that it was symbolic in nature. The boat pits being located at the eastern side of the pyramid, at the precise spot where the resuscitated king was supposed to reappear, could constitute evidence to support such an assumption. The 2 southern boat pits, each covered by a roof of huge limestone slabs, were discovered in 1954 by Kamal al-Malak, an Egyptian Egyptologist. Only one of them had been opened. 1,224 boat parts made of cedar wood were retrieved one by one and patiently reassembled by the master restorer Ahmed Youssef. This process took 28 years. Youssef worked by following lines of mortise and tenon joints and by stitching parts together with vegetable ropes, all in order to keep the design as authentic as possible. The Greek term pyramidion refers to the capstone of a pyramid or the tip of an obelisk. In ancient Egyptian, both components were called
在这金字塔顶端
This
哦，
word
它其
was
实是
also
一个
used for a specific
方
kind
尖
of
碑
food, a cone-shaped offering made of bread. The
，
pyramidion was
埃及
intended to
称
be
它
a
为
miniature
笨笨
reproduction
石
of the pyramid.，
这只是用来指某个食物啊、面包制成的圆锥物这样。
A few pyramidia have been retrieved from pyramidal complexes. The earliest, found in Dashur, is undoubtedly a good example of Old Kingdom's pyramidia. It is made of limestone and has no inscriptions. Some engraved pyramidia were recovered from
这
private
就是金
funerary
字塔顶
chapels.
端的那一块
Their
笨笨石。
inscriptions all related to the solar symbolism of the Benben. The pyramidia of the pyramids of Giza were never recovered. The reconstitution you see in the game is fictive, incorporating a golden pyramidion bearing inscriptions relevant to
哦，
Khufu.
所以说，其实，在实物上，上面这些笨笨石都已经不见了，好不好？可能被吹走了，也可能被风变不见。那游戏里看到的基本上都是重制出来的、虚构的。我们可以看到古夫金字塔外表其实保存的还蛮好的啦，只有底部的部分有因为剥落露出石块，其他平滑的表面其实都还看得还蛮清楚的。那接下来就是看看我们古夫金字塔最大的金字塔。
Welcome to Secrets of the Great Pyramid. Built around 2550 BCE, the Great Pyramid of Giza is considered one of the most iconic structures of Egypt. It is the biggest of the pyramids and the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing. The numbers associated to the Great Pyramid of Giza are impressive. A workforce of over 20,000 people, 6 million tons of stone, and 20 years of construction.
古
It
夫
was a
金字
massive
塔就是
undertaking for a pharaoh's
最
tomb.
大的金字塔，它是7大奇迹之一。它动用到2万多的人力，还有消耗600万吨的石块，还有20年就盖起来了，真的是很屌，很屌，非常屌。
The construction of the Great Pyramid was also a display of power and opulence on the part of Khufu. It is part of the pharaoh's vast funerary complex, which also includes 2 temples, 3 satellite pyramids,
那上面写了2座神殿跟3座卫星金字塔。那卫星金字塔相对就是尚未完备的金字
Khufu's
塔。
way of declaring himself one of the most powerful pharaohs to rule a unified Egypt. New insights into engineering and ancient Egyptian culture are still being revealed over 4,500 years later. For example, a recently unearthed papyrus offers a glimpse into the life of a tradesman at the time of the pyramid's construction. Also, a logbook belonging to a team leader during the building gives details on the craftsmen, their work schedules, and the raw materials required. It is interesting to note that by Cleopatra's time, the pyramid's celestial purpose, its construction, and the function of its mysterious inner chambers was already unclear. Today, it is only through dedicated research that we have begun to grasp some of the Great Pyramid's mysteries.
他这边说的是啊，其实在这金字塔的一些天象的目的啊、结构，还有内部房间啊，有什么功用啊？其实，在埃及艳后克利奥佩托拉执政的时候都不知道，好不好？只有现今开始有人在研究它，我们才慢慢掌握一些蛛丝马迹。
The Egyptians had polished their design for centuries by the time work on the Great Pyramid began. Intended as a tomb for Khufu, the Great Pyramid's structural design has been considered to be nearly perfect by engineers and historians ever since. Precisely oriented north-south to the 4 cardinal points of a compass, the length of each side of the Great Pyramid at its base was 230 meters, and its original height was 147 meters. The pyramid is a mere 0.05% error away
这金字塔的精度非常之高啊！它底部每边长230公分，高度这为原始高度啊。它因为它的头现在已经不见了，所以现在高度已经不是以往的147公尺。
In order to achieve the shape of a true pyramid, the design required many considerations in the planning phases, as well as precision during execution. It was especially critical that they control the angle of inclination on all sides at every stage of construction. Materials for the Great Pyramid consisted of quarried limestone blocks, weighing between 2 to 15 tons each. The methods of moving these blocks into place is still debated by architects and Egyptologists. The precision of its design in an age with only soft metal tools, as well as the enormous scale of its construction, make the Great Pyramid one of the most impressive feats of human engineering.
你当时的技术来建造金字塔其实是有困难的啊，那它可以建造完成，而且有这么高的精度，真的是很神奇，非常的神奇。
It's estimated that it took between 600,000 and 2 million blocks of stone to build the Great Pyramid. Experts calculate it would have required men to move 12 blocks every hour around the clock for 20 years to place the 2.3 million stones the monument is made of. While the interior chambers were built with red granite from Aswan, most of the pyramid was made from local limestone, weighing between 2 to 15 tons per block. There is debate on how the pyramid stones were moved into place. Recent research is exploring the idea that it was built around a large interior ramp. The recently discovered logbook confirms that the high-quality limestone of the outer casing was brought by boat across the Nile from a quarry in Tura. Once complete, the smooth white polished stone of the Great Pyramid would have reflected the sunlight like a beacon, earning it the name the Horizon of Khufu. Over the centuries, thieves and travelers attempted to access the Great Pyramid numerous times. Ancient writings describe details of its interior, proof that some made their way within, though who gained entrance first and when is unknown. The main entrance of the Great Pyramid is located 17 meters above ground level. It faces north, likely in order to align with the North Star. Though the entrance passageway had been discovered in antiquity, any further access into the Great Pyramid was stopped by massive vertical slabs of rock. As such, present-day visitors to the pyramid must use the robber's entrance. The robber's entrance is reported to have been opened in the 9th century by Caliph al-Mamun. In search of treasure, the Caliph had his men dig their way inside the Great Pyramid. The most likely scenario is that they enlarged a corridor which had been created by tomb robbers during antiquity. As such, this is how the team can justify access to this wonder. Attempts to gain entry to the Great Pyramid and uncover its potential secrets continued throughout the centuries. In the 19th century, the belief that another entry existed at the south side resulted in a hole being blasted into the pyramid's side, with no results for the damage that was done. While the search is still ongoing today to uncover more hidden rooms and passageways, conservation is the primary concern of all such efforts.
OK， 这就是古夫金字塔的秘密，好不好？很多未知跟已知。那我们就来看看金字塔内部吧。先钻小缝隙，看看这里是哪里呢？这里是永无止境的地底，这是地下墓室。
Welcome to the Great Pyramid, Subterranean Chamber. From the original entrance of the Great Pyramid, there is a passage leading to the subterranean chamber. Its walls were carved out of the
金字
existing
塔
rock
呢，它
and then
进来的
covered
时
in
候
fine
有
unmarked
一
limestone.
个往上的
The
通道跟一
descending
个往
passage
下
has
的
a
通
steep
道。
26-degree downward slope. Narrow and with a low ceiling, this pathway is long and challenging. While the original passage was 145 meters long, the team reduced its length and made it both wider and higher. The main focus of the work in reproducing the location was centered upon preserving the unique claustrophobic environment of the Great Pyramid, while still allowing for a smooth game navigation. The well shaft was a 58-meter vertical passage that connected the descending corridor to the grand gallery above. An adjacent grotto may have originally been a small natural well in the bedrock that was enlarged during the tunneling. Whether the grotto was intended for another purpose is uncertain. There is much speculation over the purpose of the well shaft. One theory is that the channel was cut or enlarged to supply air to workers in the descending passage. Another is that it was meant to provide an exit route once the work was done in the heart of the pyramid. Without the well shaft, workers would have been trapped inside forever when the grand gallery was sealed. The opening at the bottom of the well shaft was most likely sealed by exiting workers to camouflage the passageway. There is a subterranean chamber at the end of the descending corridor, 30 meters below the Giza Plateau's surface. Dug directly into the bedrock, the space is wide with a ceiling 3 meters in height. Its floors and walls are rough and uneven, indicating that it was never completed. At the south end of the room, there is another narrow corridor, similar to the others, though it abruptly ends after roughly 20 meters. The chamber also contains an 11-meter pit near the east side. It's unclear what this may have been used for. In the game, this well leads to a fictive underground complex containing key game-related mysteries. The subterranean chamber's original purpose remains a mystery. One popular theory is that it was originally meant to be Khufu's burial chamber, but the pharaoh changed his mind, preferring to be buried higher up in the pyramid, which would explain the chamber's unfinished state.
这个地下墓室基本上是未完成的。OK， 接下来就是来看看我们国父金字塔的上层墓室了。
Welcome to the Great Pyramid of Giza, upper chambers. At the entrance of the ascending passage are 3 granite flagstones estimated to weigh up to 25 tons each. They were used to protect the Great Pyramid from thieves. Undaunted by the granite blocks, the thieves simply dug into the softer limestone around them, thus creating the robber's entrance. While in reality the robber's entrance is one single cavity which leads to both passages, in the game, the team created individual accesses to either passage. As such, in the game, one entrance leads to the ascending passage, while another leads to the descending passage. The ascending passageway of the Great Pyramid provides a direct path into the Grand Gallery and is accessed 30 meters from the entrance along the descending corridor. Both corridors have similar dimensions and are designed with the same 26-degree incline. The ascending corridor has smooth masonry on its walls, and the layout includes many trapezoidal stones. Both the floor and ceiling of the passageway indicate that the passage was enlarged, possibly during or after the funeral, to allow workers room to move granite blocks meant to plug the corridor. The Grand Gallery's purpose is still debated among experts. It may have been intended to align with the stars, act as a buffer to protect the king's chamber, or simply to facilitate the transport of the granite blocks used inside the pyramid. Access to the queen's chamber was at the beginning of the Grand Gallery.
这边这个走廊也算是完美的重现了现实的情景啊，只不过现实有加了一些手扶梯，方便旅游的民众可以参观。
Though this room is referred to as the Queen's Chamber, it is believed that there was no queen buried here. Based on their knowledge of earlier pyramids, Egyptologists believe it was more likely intended as the king's serdab,
对，虽然被称为王后的墓室啊，但是没有王后
which
被
would
站
in
在这里
turn
啊。
house the king's spirit.
大家比较相信这边是用来存放国王的灵魂，也就是卡的地方。
Situated exactly within the pyramid's center, on the east-west axis of the pyramid, the chamber has a vaulted ceiling and measures 5.7 by 5.2 meters. In the eastern wall, there is a niche tucked away in a small corbelled archway, which may have originally held the Ka statue. Behind this niche is another smaller hole, possibly dug out by thieves in search of further treasure. In the 19th century, two shafts were found running through the north and south walls. They each run in a horizontal line for 2 meters before sloping upward, and both are closed off with limestone blocks fitted with copper handles. Whether they were intended as ventilation shafts for workers or a celestial connection for the pharaoh's spirit is unconfirmed. A recent scan of the room indicated the presence of an unknown cavity hidden behind the north face of the walls over the descending corridor. Further investigation is still ongoing to ascertain the nature of the anomaly, so as to avoid risking damage to the monument. Khufu's architects were possibly influenced by earlier rhomboidal pyramids when designing the gallery. It is the longest corbelled vault ever built, measuring 47 meters long and 8.6 meters high. The walls were made to taper inward, allowing for better distribution of weight. As a result, the ceiling measures just over a meter wide at its highest point. Though this construction technique is present in other pyramids, few have the same precision and stability. While the space is visually dramatic, the gallery seemed to serve a practical function, though what exactly remains uncertain. Still, the wall design was undoubtedly meant to contribute to the stability of the structure, and its floor may have helped workers move the materials. A channel runs along the middle of the room. A movable floor originally rested in this central recess. The raised benches on either side are equipped with slots that may have been used to help position the granite blocking stones. At the end of the Grand Gallery is the entrance to the antechamber leading to the King's Chamber. Directly above, there is another narrower horizontal passage that connects to the top of the King's Chamber and allowed the workers access to the weight relief rooms. At the end of the Grand Gallery is the entrance to the antechamber leading to the... The far end of the Grand Gallery leads to a small antechamber with a portcullis, preventing access to the King's Chamber. The portcullis was composed of 3 separate granite slabs. They were designed to be lowered into place and seal the chamber after the burial of the king. The grooves dug out to hold the slabs in place are still clearly visible to this day. The elaborate locking system was composed of a series of grooves for the ropes and pulleys that dropped the stones into place like the notches on a key. For the purposes of the game, the team elected to remove the portcullis slabs in order to grant the player access to the King's Chamber. In reality, workers would have backed out of the room after the funeral, lowering each slab into place behind them one at a time. Each of the 3 stones were smashed by looters centuries later, and evidence of their break-in is still evident.
所以要进到墓室，其实有一个很像锁的构造，只是它已经被破坏的差不多了。
The King's Chamber is built entirely out of red granite.
The King's Chamber measures 5.8 meters in height. It has an imposing cover of 5 stacked levels above, with granite beams weighing 25 to 40 tons each.
The uppermost level is surmounted by a vault of stones, arranged in chevrons to bear the enormous structural load. The king's chamber is built entirely out of red granite.
The king's chamber measures 5.8 meters in height. It has an imposing cover of 5 stacked levels above, with granite beams weighing 25 to 40 tons each.
The uppermost level is surmounted by a vault of stones, arranged in chevrons to bear the enormous structural load. As in the Queen's Chamber, 2 shafts extend out from the room towards the north and south faces of the pyramid. They measure nearly 64 meters until they are blocked by copper-handled granite plugs. Some experts in the culture of the Old Kingdom believe that the shafts were thought to lead the king's soul to the stars, with the incarnation of the pharaoh as the god Ra, represented by the northern well, and the god Horus by the southern well. There is a granite sarcophagus at the west end of the room, but it is the concealed construction inscriptions left by workmen on the roof's stones which verify this as the resting place of Khufu. The sarcophagus was recorded as being empty when it was discovered, and its design indicates that there was once a lid in place. It's possible that this sarcophagus is only a cenotaph in memory of the pharaoh, but was never actually meant to receive the body. Khufu's mummy was never found. It is hoped that as of yet undiscovered hidden rooms and shafts of the pyramid may provide an answer as to its location.
Welcome to Jean-Pierre Houdin's theories. The team wanted to provide players with a sense of exploration and discovery, particularly within the Great Pyramid. As such, a decision was made that the internal design of the monument in the game would reflect Jean-Pierre Houdin's theories. While the antechambers of the king's tomb have yet to be discovered, Houdin posits that this is merely due to a unique design, placing the pharaoh's tomb at the center of the pyramid. The entire tour you are about to take was designed along Houdin's hypotheses.
所以这一个部分的大厅是虚构的，也不算虚构的，是有人推论的，但只是还没发现，或许有，或许没有。
While respecting Houdin's hypothesis as to the general layout of the antechambers, the team wanted the contents to enhance the game experience. In regular royal tombs, the antechambers were filled with all the material goods needed by the pharaoh in the afterlife. To support the feelings of discovery and awe, the art team created a unique and fantastical treasure in this second antechamber. Houdin theorized that the ascending corridor and the Great Gallery were used by the workers to haul hoist the heavy beams above the king's chamber. He called it the service circuit. The corridor you are in now was created by the team following Houdin's theory and is referred to as the noble circuit. It is through this corridor that the wooden sarcophagus containing the pharaoh's mummy would have been transported to its final resting chamber. With this structure in mind, one can easily assume that the pyramid's entrance would have been connected to the two antechambers. Modern research has revealed that a cavity might be located behind the north face chevrons of the pyramid. As such, the team chose to create this area for the player to explore. Here is where Houdet believes that the priests and nobles would have exited the pyramid after the burial ceremony. Many theories regarding the construction of the Great Pyramid rely on the usage of external ramps. However, Houdet believes an external ramp would have been too steep for the upper portion of the pyramid. This is why he posits that there were two ramps. An external ramp for about half of the height of the pyramid, which then became an internal ramp for the second half. Houdet's theory states that this internal ramp followed the sides of the pyramid in an ascending spiral pattern. A notch discovered in the edge of the Great Pyramid, known as Bob's Room, seems to support this theory. Located at the corners of each edge of the pyramid, these large rooms would have allowed workers to turn the stone by 90 degrees, allowing them to continue the ascent. The team chose to create rooms such as this one, bringing Houdet's hypothesis to life. This long corridor was the first section of the ascending internal ramp. Through it, the blocks used to build the Great Pyramid would have been carefully moved upward and then turned at each edge of the pyramid in order to continue their ascent. Though the team only created the main ramp for the game, Houdet posits that this ramp had two levels, allowing workers to return safely to the bottom thanks to an additional corbelled upper section. According to Houdet, the start of the inner ramp was located at the base of the southeastern face of the pyramid. This location would have been the junction point of the external and internal ramps. Below us, workers would have built the lower part of the pyramid with the external ramp before eventually switching to the internal ramp for the middle and upper sections of the pyramid. At that time in the process, they could have reused the material of the external ramp to fill the center of the pyramid, hauling the stones in through the internal ramp.
这就是我们古夫大金字塔的内部结构，还有一些房间的用途。那接 接下来我们就来爬到顶端，再跑下来。我先想办法爬到顶部。这可以说是非常陡峭啊。这样看有点可怕。哦不，糟了！我要滑下来。哦，快到顶了！滚，又滑下来了。那真的有办法上去吗？为什么会这样？没关系，如果我们爬金字塔失败，我们就飞上去。其实我们爬得很辛苦，终于爬到金字塔顶端了。这块也就是金字塔顶端的笨石。上面刻有一些图案，代表跟古夫有关的标志。在这上面，埃及四周一览无遗，这风景真的很漂亮。好，然后是时候展现我们信仰的力量了。 今天导览就到这边，感谢各位收看，谢谢大家。